internet, ladies are truly the dolls of maids. My name is Matthew Kroll.
And she's got good bone structure for a Korean. I'm sure that's not racist. My name is Shahir Dowd.
Totally not racist on the only...
Not racist. Was it racist?
About
wait, we
movies, specifically the film The Handmaiden.
And we're joined by a guest, Esther Park. Welcome back.
Thank you.
We just had you on our Triple X, the return of Xander Uprising Cage.
And I say it's not racist because you have a Korean in the house.
Oh, wow.
High five.
Okay.
High five.
All right. Well, and you have lovely bone structure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So
Great job.
Fun fact, I used to teach Korean film as well, so
that's so great. I used to watch Korean films.
So we're all
Korean.
Yeah, we're all
That is
pretty
not
much
true.
Korean at this point. Can you tell me what samida means?
Huh?
Samida?
감사합니다.
Kamsamnida. What does that mean exactly?
Okay. So 감사합니다 is thank you.
Yeah.
It's a formal way to say it, but you only took the second half of the word.
Because I always hear just the second half.
Oh
of it.
yeah,
It's
so
like
when Koreans say it really fast, it just sounds like 감사합니다.
Yeah.
But it's 감사합니다.
Ah, okay.
What is it?
It's thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, great.
There you go. Welcome to the only podcast about learning Korean. You have learned something today. We've done our job.
Wow.
Pat on the back for you guys.
Yay!
Cultural night.
We did it.
I'm so excited to do this film.
And you just can't hide it.
Because I love Park Chan-wook. Just let it be told.
Wait. You guys can point to me when you need Korean names.
Oh, how do we say his name?
Have I said it wrong?
No, I'm just making fun of non-Koreans saying Korean names because they butcher it every time.
And just to get the arrangement right, you say the last name first, right? So Park Chan-wook.
Well, no. So in Korean, when you write it out, it's always a last name first, and I think that's why people
say Park Chan-wook,
Yeah.
but it's Chan-wook Park.
Yeah, you can
Okay.
just say it like that. Like the same way as like mine is written with
Park.
the last name first in Korean, but everyone just says Esther Park.
Gotcha.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
So listen, this movie,
First impressions.
not even yet, but it's pretty fucking good.
Okay.
I really liked it.
Yeah, and Matt,
And I love the director. I love Old Boy. I love what was it? Vengeance?
Sympathy for Mr.
Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance. I always say no sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, but that's not the title.
No, and then
The
Lady
trilogy that wasn't meant to be a trilogy.
Right.
Yeah. What do you think of the trilogy? Okay, so let's sidestep. Have you seen the full trilogy?
I haven't seen Lady. No.
Have you?
No,
Esther?
just Old Boy.
I've seen Old Boy and Sympathy.
You guys got to see JSA, Joint Security Area, which was almost remade into an American film. So Joint Security Area is about the DMZ between North Korea and South Korea.
Yep.
And it was almost remade into an American film about the border between Mexico and America, which is no way related to the DMZ.
Not at all.
And it was going to be directed at one point by Steven Spielberg, starring one Will Smith, which is like a
God.
terrifying.
Welcome to Earth.
Remember, Old Boy was remade
Terribly.
by Spike Lee, which is a filmmaker I really like.
Yeah.
And with
done
Josh
better.
Brolin. So here's the thing with Chan-wook Park. He is the relationship between story and camera with him is so integral. It's so tightly connected.
Sure.
Every camera move in his films are an extension of what he's trying to say with the story. And he's also one of the few filmmakers. Well, there are two in South Korea that have done really well translating into American cinema, and that is Bong Joon-ho, who did Snowpiercer a couple years ago, which I loved. I think Snowpiercer is
great
great.
film.
That America also stole and remade.
What, Snowpiercer? It's
Yeah.
an American film.
Is it?
Yeah.
I thought that they did a remake of one that was made in Korea.
No, it's Korean directed.
Is it?
Yeah, Bong Joon-ho
Okay,
directed
I
it
take
here.
that back.
Well, shit.
But they do. Americans
They
take
do.
over
100%.
everything.
Well, that's an interesting thing about this film in particular, which
Yeah.
is that it's an adaptation of a
Book.
of a book called Fingersmiths,
Yeah.
which is set in the English countryside.
That's a
Yeah,
bad
that's
name.
weird. I don't know how he got his hands on that.
What?
Haha, zing! Fingersmith.
Wait, how he got his hands on it?
On the book. Because,
What do you-
I don't know, it just
With
seems
fingers.
like such a...
He did it with fingers.
It's been adapted before,
There's
but also
too many underlying things going on
What are
right
you talking about?
Well, here's the
don't,
thing.
Don't make it a thing. Think about it. Don't think about it.
Chan-wook Park is arguably like in the spectrum of great filmmaking. Yeah, no, we're gonna get to Fingersmiths as a
Joke.
double entendre in a minute. But Chan-wook Park is one of the premier filmmakers working today in the world. And did you guys see Stoker?
No.
Stoker is so fucking good. It is amazing. Written by Wentworth Miller, of all people.
Oh, shit.
It is amazing.
Wow.
It's phenomenally written, and it's just beautifully directed. And it's the best thing Nicole Kidman's been in forever.
Okay.
Chan-wook Park is incredible. I had a brief period with Aaron Mannion Park, who has been on the show. Aaron Mannion Park was teaching Korean cinema.
Yep.
I TA'd on that course, and I did a couple of lectures on it as well. So I got exposed to
When you were in film school.
When I was teaching in film school.
Of course.
And so I got exposed to a lot of Korean film and a lot of Korean cinema. And some of my, one of my favorite filmmakers, other than Asghar Farhadi, who we talked about 2 weeks ago, I think one of the best writer-directors in the world is a Korean filmmaker by the name of Lee Chang-dong. If you guys can seek out any of his movies, particularly a movie called Oasis, it is, like I said, I think it's one of the greatest melodramas that's been made in the last decade. But there's something about Korean cinema that is kind of incredible, and I say this from a place of like the size of the Korean film industry is not uncomparable to the New Zealand film industry, but whatever it is they're doing very well. And they have through that course, we learned a lot about the way the Korean film industry is set up, which is entirely different to a lot of other countries. And it has a lot, it has a lot to do with why the Korean film industry is so good. But, all that aside, Chan-wook Park is making a movie. It demands to be seen.
Of course.
You have to see whatever he's going to work on.
Now, Esther, do you I was gonna say ingest, but you're not eating anything. Do you watch a lot of Korean cinema, or have you steered clear? Were you brought up with it? Like what?
So his films are the only ones I've actually taken the time to watch.
Okay.
Because I actually think that Korean cinema sucks.
Really?
Whoa!
Really?
Yeah.
Well, but does that because maybe in the same way that I'm not a big fan of Bollywood? Is it because you grew up watching and like your family might watch a lot of melodrama? Like my family watches a lot of melodrama, and I'm just not into it.
I think that when I was growing up, the majority of Koreans tend to like the mainstream shit movies.
Right.
So I wasn't exposed like the way I was in the States.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't exposed to like the craft.
Yeah.
Like worthy, like talking about like the really great films in Korean cinema. So when I heard of Old Boy and I watched it, I was like, wow, they're doing some really great stuff over there. You know what I mean? So like, it's very limited.
Yeah.
But this film deals with a lot of themes I think that I want to speak to eventually. But yeah.
And I think if you liked this film, you will love Stoker.
Yeah.
First impression though, I actually don't like this film.
Oh
wow! All right, we got to get to that.
We'll get to it.
So just real quick, my history with Korean cinema goes back to college. Not the same with Shahir sort of teaching it, but I had a friend in college. He's still a very good friend, Matthew Marchetti, who actually does a series on Instagram, weirdly enough, called Movie Matinee, where he'll actually take a picture. I love a lot of B-movie schlock, but sometimes he'll do like actual great films too. And he'll actually write a pretty good review on the picture of like the box art that he does. And he just does it for fun. And he's an excellent writer. So please check that out. Movie
So
Matinee.
that's your history with Korean cinema in college, in your dorm room?
But but hold on. Let me finish my fucking story, Esther.
What happened?
You sure it wasn't on Pornhub.com?
Oh my God.
I'm just kidding.
That took a turn. But I was just going to insinuate, what else were you doing in your college room?
No, I was going to say Korean cinema in your dorm room by yourself.
I get it now.
Sorry.
She's making a joke about you masturbating, dude.
Oh.
It's a masturbation joke.
Ha. No one masturbates, but that's not what I'm fucking talking about. What I'm talking about.
You can edit that part out.
What I'm talking about. No, you're keeping that in. I hope everyone's parents are happy. No. So Matt Marchetti had a region-free DVD player.
Right.
And he was the inspiration for me to eventually buy a region-free DVD player because he would show us mainly Korean, but other foreign films too. But he has a collection of amazing Korean cinema to the point where I'd start watching these films that don't have subtitles and loving them.
Really?
There's one that I actually brought up now. It was a 2002 film called Resurrection of the Little Match Girl. I still don't officially know what the plot is. I have watched that movie 25 times. It does not have subtitles. It does not. I can't find it with English subtitles. At least back then I couldn't. I haven't looked for it recently. But that movie and many, many others that I went online, I bought a Jeton region-free DVD player, and I just I ate it up, and it was a big part of my life, probably till like 2007, 2008. Like that was a lot of the film that I ingested. And
so you guys are more well versed in Korean cinema than I am.
Yeah, it might be the case.
I think so.
Yeah.
It appeared.
But this film.
Yes.
What's it about, Matt? Hit me.
Oh, I have it. I have it right here.
You should have it by now. We're doing a podcast.
Here we go. Here we go. Ready?
I'm hitting you.
A woman is hired as a handmaiden to a Japanese heiress, but secretly she's involved in a plot to defraud her.
It's actually a really good synopsis.
That's actually not bad. That's probably the best IMDb synopsis.
I'm having complete opposite. I'm like, God, that sounds boring.
Really?
Yeah.
No, in terms of like,
no, because normally the IMDb synopsis doesn't even say what the movie's about.
Oh.
They did a great job here in one sentence trying to. I mean, they don't give the reason why the movie's great. They do say how it starts.
But I'm burning to know here. Burning, literally burning.
That's from what he did in college.
Yeah,
Let's get that straight.
A lot of burns. Esther, why? Tell us what you thought about the movie. You've already dropped a controversial bomb.
I know, I did.
Bomb.
I dropped the bomb.
Drop the bomb. Hit us with the bomb.
Okay, so I appreciate, after having watched Old Boy, I appreciate the way it was shot. It's like visually just really beautiful. And the point you made about him and how each camera angle is like so specific to like, it's an extension of who he is, you know. But I didn't like the film for a few reasons. One, because the chemistry between the two women was not believable for me.
Interesting.
It was, so like in my head, I compared it to, it's very similar in the sense of a blue is a warmest color.
Yep. But without the chemistry for you.
Right.
Or did you like?
So, yeah. So like the chemistry in blue is the warmest color was there. In this movie, I didn't think it was. But the sex scenes in both films, I don't think was necessary to portray that there's love between the two women. You know what I mean? I think it was excessively a little too long, like in both films. So like for me, that was a problem because I think you made this point last week in the Triple X, which is, you know, like Asian films, when it comes to sexuality, they have not been the ones to like highlight it or like graphically, like, you know, there's like limitations of how far you can go with it.
There are historical antecedents to what you just said, but I agree on the whole in popular culture.
Yeah,
there's certainly a more chaste approach to sex and sexuality in India, in Korea, in Japan.
On the whole,
yeah,
on the whole, yeah,
yeah. So those are my issues with it. And I didn't. Yeah, I mean that was my biggest turnoff. I think
there's no chemistry.
I just think I have a bias about like sexuality and like women and the way that it was portrayed in this film. That was like the biggest turnoff for me.
Okay.
So the storytelling, like the plot, like I appreciate it all, shot very beautifully, but just like when it comes to that theme, because it was supposed to be the biggest theme and the thing that you're supposed to spend the most amount of time kind of working out, for me, I was like, I don't feel it at all.
Okay. Do you want to go first, Matt? Shall we paper, scissors, rock?
No, it's rock, paper, scissors, first of all.
I think the scissors is going to be the most important one.
Oh,
but
God damn it. You just fucking badmintoned that. Jesus.
I actually partially...
You know what? I'm cracking a beer.
Partially agree with you, Esther, which is that I think there's an interesting conversation to be had about... Like, Matt, we've had this conversation on the podcast before. There's a couple of issues, so I'll try and dissect them as much as I can first. On the whole... it is not my favorite.
Saying on the whole.
No, counter argument. Keep saying on the whole.
Okay.
On the whole, in the scissor world.
Hey, John.
That's just do one.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I think this is a beautifully told movie. It is a beautifully, wonderfully cinematic experience. Nothing less than I would expect from Chan-wook Park. It is the kind of rich tapestry of filmmaking that he is known for. It is a very provocative story.
Yes.
And it is very well executed. I have to admit, personally, on a pure storytelling level, I found when the surprises were being unraveled in front of me, it's not that I didn't think that they were genuine surprises. I didn't find them surprising.
Yeah.
I kind of this is
Saw it
where
coming.
I don't know if saw it coming is the right turn of phrase, but it was like, oh, okay, that's it. Nothing like made my jaw drop or nothing. It was just kind of like, okay, yep, it keeps going. Then the second part of this is we've talked about this on the podcast a lot. I am a big fan of filmmakers exploring sex and sexuality in film. One of my touchstone films for this is a film that I showed to my film 101 class called In the Realm of the Senses by Nagase Oshima. And it was a film that I had forgotten starts with a fully graphic blowjob scene. And I showed it to a group of 18 to 19-year-olds.
What year was this film?
This is I want to say 1970s, early 1970s.
Wow.
And it's an incredible film. It's basically a series of just
blowjob scenes.
No, full sex scenes. And I mean, but it is trying to explore.
So I wasn't
point.
actually wrong.
No, you're not wrong. But
it's exploring what?
Because it's set during wartime Japan, and it's about a couple that retreats into basically their own sex life. And it's based on a famous Japanese myth of, I think her name is Sadaka, who turned up in a village with, this is a spoiler for the film from 1970 something.
Spoiler alert for this movie.
She turns up in a town, kind of raving mad with her lover's penis.
Her love of penis?
No, her lover's penis.
She took it.
She took it.
Sorry. Oh, that sounds scary.
It's a really.
Oh my god.
No one else is laughing.
Yeah, I know.
It's
you guys are scared. I'm laughing my ass.
No. Watch the film. It's a beautiful.
Okay.
And I remember the thing was that I showed it to a group of 19-year-olds. And the question that we put on our questionnaire for them to answer was, did you think what you just watched was pornography or art? And a great majority of them said they thought it was pornography.
Yeah.
Which I thought was brilliant. And in fact, a few of them wrote that they didn't think that they should have been allowed to see it, given that they were older than the age it was restricted for. At any rate, I am a big proponent of this because I think the balance of what we do in cinema tends to favor violence as explicit and gratuitous and tends to treat sex and sexuality as taboo. And I think that is deeply troubling and problematic. And I appreciate when a filmmaker like Chan-wook Park decides to treat sex and sexuality as a key cornerstone of the storytelling in this film. I do agree with you, Esther, a little bit that the depiction of sex and sexuality in this film tends to lean towards something that is slightly what you would perceive as fantasy.
Yes.
More than reality. But I felt the commitment, and I agree a little bit about the chemistry as well, although I felt like the storytelling was making up for that, and it was, like they were giving me reasons.
For me, it did too.
Yeah, giving me reasons for why I believe these two characters
in fact did love each other. Although I didn't necessarily feel it on screen. I actually, but I do think blue is the warmest color. I actually thought what I loved about that film is every sex scene in that film felt necessary, and it felt important to the story. It felt important to the characters. Yeah.
So there's two sides to this. One is that as a story, I was kind of 50-50 on it, but I just love Chan-wook Park's sense of humor and his sense of perversity. Like, I think he is a filmmaker who is interested in the way in which human beings think.
Yeah. And
he is interested in looking at the perversity of the way human beings think. And I think that's really interesting. I generally think the story, the turns it took were not that surprising to me, but again, beautifully told, well executed. I would wholeheartedly recommend this film to anyone. Maybe don't watch it with your parents if that's a thing.
Oh no, totally watch it with your parents.
But yeah, so I'm partially on board with you, but I think I'm more in favor of this film.
Okay.
So,
Mr. Kroll.
Oh wow, no one's ever called me Mr. Kroll before.
Yeah.
Mr. Kroll's my father.
Yeah.
So I kind of disagree with all of you, but I like it. I'll say that straight up.
Okay.
And maybe it's not a disagreement. I don't know. So
I don't think you're wrong for liking it.
Two sort of things. One, from the surprise factor. So let me break down. I watched this movie Me and my cat watched it, and we were just hanging out.
How did Zoe like it?
She was here for a little bit of it, and then she went away, and then she came back.
Did she come back for the sex scenes?
No, surprisingly not. She came back.
I thought that would have been her thing.
Yeah, well, sometimes you can't read that. But the point of this is, I watched it, and when I turned it on, I rented it off of Amazon. I was like, 2.5 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, in my brain, I was like, all right, like I'll do it. It blinked by for me. And that is a compliment. And I will say, because it's broken up into 3 parts, right? At the end of the first part, and we'll go through this, I was so fucking on board because I thought it was very like, sort of straightforward and like whatever. And it was done very well. And the cinematography was beautiful and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, fuck. And I didn't know like the twist happened, but there's 2 sort of ways the twist could go. And I didn't quite know which one it was. And I was in. So it fucking got me hook, line, and sinker. Now, granted, that's 45 minutes in the movie, and it was fine up until then. But what I will say and the sex scenes are gratuitous. There's no question about it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. In length. Eventually, especially the second time that you witness the main sex scene between the 2 women, it goes on for a long time.
Yep.
Continue. I disagree, but continue.
But what I will say, and this is where I sort of agree with you, Shahir, and I think their chemistry. Sorry, before I get to that, Esther, I think their chemistry was fine. But then again, this is literally me trying to read chemistry. Like literally read the words of chemistry. So like I don't know that whenever you're reading subtitles of a film, to me you put a little more of yourself into it because it's that
you're
weird
making more
like,
of an effort.
Yeah, you're putting emotional text in your brain, and that you can sort of that. So maybe that's why it worked for me. Side note. I hadn't seen this in a film before that I loved. Right in the beginning, it's like Japanese is in yellow and Korean is in white.
I watched it with subtitles too, because I'm not completely
right.
Yeah, so
okay. Well, so okay, then maybe my thing doesn't.
You would have seen that in Inglourious Bastards as well.
They had the color coded.
I don't know if they had it color coded, but they had people speaking different languages.
Right, but I liked that it was color coded because
yellow for Japanese.
The thing about it was important to the story and what they were talking about like who was Japanese, who was Korean speaking Japanese, who was Korean or who was Japanese speaking Korean. Like it was all very important to the character. So I really enjoyed that. Back to the sex scenes because let's go. I really appreciated not only there's the sort of lizard brain of like, oh yeah, here's 2 attractive women having a long sex scene, like that's cool. But beyond that,
be honest, did you guys get a boner?
I did not. I would be honest. I would tell you if I did.
I think so. Yeah.
A little.
Yeah.
Okay.
What is that wrong?
No, I was just curious.
But the point. But this is why. So there's something like what you said. Like, is something porn or is it?
That's
art.
why I was asking.
Yeah. Is it porn or is it art?
Yeah.
But I think there's art. Porn is kind of art in a weird way, but that's not what I'm talking about. Let's talk about film. Let's not get down that stupid rabbit hole. So, here's a scene that is obviously arousing, but what I really appreciated about this movie from a director whose films are pretty fucking violent.
Graphic, yeah.
Graphic violence in a lot of shit. The graphicness in this film was reserved for sex as opposed to violence. In fact, all of the violent stuff that they basically sort of alluded to once or twice with the exception of one like almost sort of inconsensual sex scene, but then was very clearly like going to not sort of happen in the film. We can get to that too. But like it did not have gratuitous violence in this film. It had gratuitous sex. And going back to what you had said before, how at least Western culture, or it's a lot of cinematic culture in general, like violence is always okay, but sex is bad. Yeah. So while it did have a long sex scene in it, or a lot of sort of sex in it that, could you have toned it down and would the movie have been any worse for it? I don't think so.
I don't think that's what I mean by like toning it down. I think it was just the way that it was shot.
I just thought because it was long. It was long. It's the second time you go through because you witness the same events in this film multiple times.
Yeah.
But just to finish my thought, and we'll get to it as we go chronologically. I really appreciated that sex was almost. I'd rather at this point sex be exploited in a consensual, nice way than violence being exploited all over the fucking place. And that to me was like, this feels weirdly refreshing.
Yeah.
You should watch Blue is the Warmest Color.
I do need to see that. That has been on my list for a long time.
Yeah.
But so I really liked it. And the twists for me, it did not. I was surprised. I didn't, but I never watched a trailer for this. I knew nothing going in. So maybe that's why. I don't know. Did you watch? I know you don't watch the trailers often.
No, I didn't see the trailer for this.
Okay, but I don't know how this trailer was. A lot of times lately, it feels like trailers just give away half the fucking shit.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So you had an interesting comment about the trailer. Like you were. Not...
I was expecting this film. Like
Right.
I watched the trailer. I read reviews. Like
You got
tracked
yourself
it.
in the headspace.
I tracked it.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, maybe, but that's part of the reason why I was a little disappointed with this film but I think the majority of it is just that, like, when you're a male director and your job, you're using the same approach to violence, to sexuality. Yes, I think it is necessary that you do that and you treat it both equally because that's just, required. But I think that it also means you need to be a little bit more careful about like how long and how like for me, you know what I mean?
No, it makes total sense because and I'll tell you straight up, the first time the sex scene happens from the one person's perspective, I was like, this is great. Like
applauding.
There's literally slow clapping in this bravo.
Yeah.
Right? The second time it happens, it's up for almost double the time. And that, even to me, while I was like, this is great. I've seen this before.
You start getting uncomfortable a little bit.
I was just sort of like, well, why are we here again? Like, because every other moment where they expand on it from another character's perspective gave a little piece of information that helped the weird plot move along.
Right.
The sex scene being elongated did not.
Well, here's the thing: is I actually the second sex scene, because the question mark that the first one left me, and especially the turning point that happens at part 1, part 2, was Lady Hideko into it? Was she playing a part? Was she actually in love with her? And I think to me, the length of the second sex scene was all about answering that question.
That question was never asked. It's hard to talk about. We'll get to it, but I think that question wasn't aptly asked until that point. So, like, I don't think that was even necessary.
Well, no, but the question is because
it's hard to talk about it without spoil. We'll get there.
But okay, so the end of part 1 ends with a betrayal, a very deep betrayal of one of our characters. And the second time we're seeing that first sex scene for the second time. And the question that I have after that betrayal was she playing a role in that initial sex scene? And what the length of that second sex scene did was answer that question for me, which is that I spent the first half of it going, I think she's still playing a role, and I'm not sure how far she's going with this.
And by the end of it,
I was like, oh, she's actually in love with this person.
I could see that, but at the same time, there's a million other ways they could have done that. They don't have to show the same sex scene for 10 minutes or whatever the hell it was. So like,
I don't know. I also kind of liked, like, again, there is as I said in the beginning, there's a tendency for this to feel slightly like the fantasy of a heterosexual male, but because it's too.
I think the whole thing isn't it?
Well, I think of those.
The way it's shot, especially the second time, feels 100% like it is.
Yeah.
And again, I'm admitting that, but I'm accepting that and saying I enjoyed it.
But I also think that Chan-wook Park, like he does with his other films, where storytelling and camera line, and there's one particular shot that is
which one?
Possibly the greatest 69 shot in the history of cinema, and probably in the history of pornography as well.
It seems pretty standard to me.
The rotating 69 shot over the head, that seemed pretty standard to you?
Rotating?
Yeah, where they were basically an overhead shot, and when they went into a 69 position, the camera rotated along.
Oh, rotated.
See, that's exactly what happens in Blue is the Warmest Color.
That didn't happen in Blue is the Warmest Color.
You see them above scissoring. I mean, like 69ing, basically.
But do we rotate around them like that?
I don't think the subtle 45 degree of a rotation really
Maybe
matters.
You don't.
No, but see, again, to me, that was kind of that intricacy of camera and story that he's so good at.
Okay.
And even things like where we, again, and it sounds like I'm being exploitative about it, but I genuinely...
No, it sounds like you're trying not to be, but I think it purely is, especially in that second moment.
My point is that I want filmmakers to spend as much time on sex like this as we do on violence and on like
I agree with that.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm on board with you in that. I totally agree with you.
even if it doesn't work, and even
That's my
I
problem,
want
yes.
filmmakers to spend
Right.
this much time
So,
on a sex scene.
It's important. Yes, it's important to the cause, right?
Yeah.
Because like I said, the amount of time he spends with the violent scenes, it's like he should devote that to the sexual sex scenes too.
Yeah.
But the way it was executed was what I had a problem with.
Right. In which way?
Like, I don't know.
Well, think about it. Well, let's get back to it. Let's get back to it after we go through the film because she can give some time to think about it. We should go through the actual movie and not just talk about the fucking sex scene.
I wanted to get into like you have a feeling about this film, and let's see what that feeling is.
We can, but we can. Are we going to specifics now?
Yeah,
let's
should.
go to spoilers.
We should go to spoilers, and then we'll come back.
Okay.
So, guys, when I came into this and started writing down what happened, spoiler alert, everybody, because like the main character, what was her official name?
Point to me.
Suki. Her name was Suki at the end of it.
Well, the thing is, she has three.
Suki.
I know,
she has
but
three
Suki.
names.
Suki, but you've seen True Blood.
Yes.
Well, she has
Suki. Bill.
Yeah.
But she has three different names.
I know that's what confused because I wrote down. I'm like, so and so is this. Wait, now her real name is this. No, now her real name is this.
But this is interesting because there's been a recent resurgence. Like, so I don't know how much you guys know about Korean history, and this was a revelation to me when I'd learned about this. But
teach me about Korean history because I'm not joking. I really don't.
Well, okay,
I
so
thought you were calling him out. That
yeah,
would've been
like
hilarious.
yes, teach me about Korean
teach
history.
me about Korean history.
You tell me about what happened.
okay, so in early Korean, so we're talking 1910. There was
He's actually going to do it.
There was a treaties that was drawn up between Japan and Korea.
Yes.
For Korea to act as a protectorate of for Japan to act as a protectorate of Korea. But unfortunately, this meant that this became a Japanese occupation of Korea, and a very forceful occupation, one that saw the death of many people and the near obliteration of an entire Korean culture.
Yes.
The reason we were interested in this from a Korean film history point of view is that in this period, as a Korean filmmaker, you couldn't make films in the Korean language. You had to create characters that were Japanese and spoke Japanese. There was a concerted effort to decimate the Korean culture as we know it. And this is why the pendulum swaying the other way, and why I think Korean cinema is so powerful today, and so
just fucking out there. Like
no, and so popular is
that's what I'm saying.
Is that in the late 80s there was a quota put in the Korean cinema system where if you owned a Korean theater, you had to show Korean films for 146 days.
So it's like a mandate.
You had to show it. And it's actually a real sticking point between America and Korea in terms of trade deals, is that they want to ensure that, like they can get in non-Korean films. So this, and what I love is that this period of Korean history hasn't necessarily been dealt
Explored.
with. And if you want to find out about true horrors of this period, look up comfort women, which were women who were women who were sent to the front lines of with Japanese soldiers and basically told to be sexual slaves. But there's actually been what do I got here? 7 films in the last 2 years that deal with this period of Korean history by major filmmakers in Korea. So I think it's a really fascinating area, and one that particularly couldn't be told in that time. What I love about this film is that it is the appropriation of an English story reappropriated into that period. And the thing about the names is so important because that was fundamental to what life was like. And I don't think this film really gets into like the obliteration of the culture in that period, but I think there are like little subtle hints to it. And again, it's just an area that I have read a lot about, but haven't seen on screen. And you can't see on screen because it didn't exist.
Yeah.
Which I think is great.
Yeah. So 3 different names.
Yeah. What are they?
Tamako.
Tamako.
Point to me.
Point to me. Point to Korean.
Tamako.
Wait.
Tamako is she ends up at the she's like a woman working at a
baby farm.
At a baby farm for rich Japanese people. Is that what it was?
No, so baby farm is another area that I happen to have a lot of interest in because I've written a film about it.
Because you have a child.
Because I have a child. But baby farms are basically where people would take unwanted children and raise them for the specific purpose of adopting them out to
Rich.
not even wealthy people, people who
people
just
that
wanted children.
Yeah. So she's there, and then she gets told that she's going to go to this rich household to take care of this woman, and the head maid changes her name to, where was it?
Ukju.
Ukju.
Good job.
Yay!
Yeah.
And then we find out that her real name, even beyond that, her true history, is
Suki.
And Suki, I understand
Not
that.
Suki.
And not
Suki.
Suki.
Not
But
Suki
I
like
will
in True
keep
Blood.
saying
Yeah.
it like
yeah,
Bill.
it's okay. No, it's okay. I
But
won't
it
correct
actually-
you every time. I just,
Was that her real name, or was that the name that Lady Hidoko gave to her?
No, that was her name from, I don't remember where she got it. Either way, there was 3 names.
Yeah.
There was 3 names. And I like, but the thing is that mirrors this triple identity in
Yes.
this film as well.
Yes.
So then, but you find out as the movie sort of goes through a series of flashbacks as she's getting acclimated to waiting on this heiress or this woman who will inherit this fortune, that she's actually there to do no good because Count Fujiwara is basically working with her to steal Lady Hideko. Was it?
Hidoko.
Hidoko.
I don't know. I'm not Japanese.
Hideko? I don't know. Her fortune. She's going to
Okay.
steal her fortune. And they're working together to make her, the countess, fall in love with this dude who's a swindler. And then he can marry her and then take her money. And then
And
there's
that's
a cut.
part 1.
Well, yeah, because I thought that was the whole thing. And it was interesting because as the movie was moving, I was like, this is 2.5 hours. Like, this is almost done. So,
Part 2.
yeah, well, hold on. We'll get there.
It's funny because the whole the actual con plot kind of felt like a less comedic version of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles to me.
Yeah,
You know,
I can
like, it
see
was
that.
and that's why I was kind of like, it's interesting. And there are certain revelations within the plot that I find that I thought were pretty cool, like the fact that he's the person that Lady Hidoko is cared for her.
Her name is not Haduku.
Hidoko.
This is not like Count Dooku.
No, Count Dooku. Yeah, no, you're right. Uncle Kazuki is a wealthy rare book dealer.
Yes. He's
and
the one that's going to marry his niece.
he's going to marry his niece because he was married to her aunt.
Yes.
And her aunt killed herself by hanging herself on a tree.
Because he's into some shit.
Well, that's what I liked the revelation of what the rare books were, and he's just this great kind of character. He's got this blackened tongue,
Because he licks pens all day.
Yep.
He licks pins all day.
He thinks books are like life and like, but in like a weird sort of almost fetishized way.
Yeah, which comes into play later. The one other thing about this movie is, and the reason maybe why I didn't respond to it as well is that when we taught Film 101, we would assign students a film to watch, and one of our main criteria for a student to watch is that you had to watch it 3 times, and we always tried to pick films that each viewing would reveal more information, or there is a sort of systemic connection between the production, the way a film was made, and the thematic concerns of the film. That's kind of what we're trying to teach students. And so we would look for films that were particularly formal, like formally told, formally executed. And this to me would be an ideal candidate for a film that I would assign a student, because it is so, there's so
much to uncover.
Yeah, there's so, and like the immediate thing is that the fetishization of an octopus, which is what is clearly in Uncle Kazuki's books, in his tongue, in the way he dresses. It's clearly it's a very clear example of theme told through visuals and through production. So that maybe a little part of me was like, oh, I was watching and going, this would be a great film to assign students. Like it's just, you could watch this movie 3 times, you could write an essay about it, and you would learn something from each time.
You have a thing about showing students like borderline pornography.
One of the films we did was Irreversible.
Of course you did. You fucking degenerate.
But the thing is, Irreversible is a good example of formality and story connected together.
What's Irreversible?
We'll talk later.
All right.
You don't want to watch Irreversible.
But he's gonna show it to children.
No. We allowed students to pick a series of one of many films, and Irreversible was one of them.
Okay.
It happened to be playing in the theater when we were teaching that course.
So, basically, as this plot unfolds, Suki and and Hideko. I wish we knew how
Hideko?
to Hideko.
Let's go with Hideko.
Yeah, let's go
Hideko.
with Hideko.
Yeah.
Suki starts falling for Hideko. The Count comes along. He's going on a little too strong. And then Suki and Hideko.
Of what we think.
And then they get intimate. They have the first sex scene, which I think we've talked about before, and some of us are okay with, and some of us are not. And then the Count, Hideko finally accepts the Count's proposal, and they elope. The Count converts a lot of her riches to cash, and they go to the idea that Suki and the Count were going to have was that they were going to do that, and then they were going to commit Hideko to a mental institution because everyone's saying that she's crazy in this movie.
Yeah, she is.
To a point.
She's a little nuts.
Not crazy, but like crazy.
Yeah, but yeah.
I mean, look.
There's context for crazy.
Sure.
Look at her uncle.
Yeah. So, and then, but the twist, at the end of part one is that they commit Suki. They commit her to the insane asylum under Hideko's name.
Right.
So, and then part one ends where you're like, wait, what the fuck? And this is what I want to say. I didn't know at the end of this part which direction this movie was going to go. Was this a psychological thing? I thought it could have possibly been like she was witnessing, it's almost like a Tyler Durden-esque Fight Club sort of moment.
Shutter Island.
Yeah, I mean, it was marketed as like a psychological thriller.
Yeah. And I'm glad it didn't go that direction, but it brought me there. And for a good 20 minutes, I wasn't sure.
Yeah, you weren't sure how
where it was going to go.
Yeah, where we were in, if we were seeing an unreliable narrator.
And the brilliance of that, because you can, that is so hard to do well. I don't even know the first step in doing it well. And this is as Shahir always says, a masterclass in subversion in that sense, because I was literally on the edge of my seat for the most of the second half. In fact, almost until the longer sex scene when I finally started figuring out what the fuck was going on.
Then you really perked up.
Yeah.
No, they just calmed down. I'd seen that before. It was so... yeah, it was really something special to see this thing like have an unraveling so slowly and puts a lot of fucking twisters, as I'll call them, like your M. Nights and your all that shit, like on point as to like, or sorry, not on point, on blast, because they don't do it well. And this is fucking beautiful in its execution. Even if you don't like, can we all agree that sort of span in part two? I know you said you weren't surprised.
I think my issue was that the this film does an interesting time structure where a decision will happen and we'll kind of just have figured out what the decision was and we've moved on from it really quickly, and it'll be a major decision. So like, for example, when Hideko decides to get married, it happens really quickly, and then the pacing breaks at the end of part one. Yeah, 100%. No, but I think this whole film kind of like does that on purpose. Like, and then all of a sudden they're eloping, and you're like, oh wait, is this happening now? And you didn't realize that decision had been made.
Right.
And it does that in order to have
set you up for the part two.
Yeah, and the second half is basically going to go back over those decisions and then play them out so you kind of understand the full context. Yeah. And my problem is that the thing about the lack of surprise is by the time we go back to see those decisions being made, I didn't find them, or like the revelations weren't like completely 180 degrees different to what I thought it was.
It was for me. Right. I just didn't.
And I've got no beef with that. If it worked for you, then that's great. I just found it like I didn't quite, when the turn happened at the end of the first part, I kind of knew where this film was going to go.
Shahir, move your damn feet. I just moved my foot, and they're literally right under my chair. I know we're talking about sexy time.
If you haven't been able to take it.
Stop playing footsie while I'm here.
Yeah.
Do it when I leave.
Esther, we've sort of gone, I really like the twist. Shahir isn't as enamored with it.
I think they're very good.
Yeah.
I just
found
it coming. Yeah.
Did you see it coming? And if no matter what the answer is, was that good enough to help you along in this movie that you said already that you don't like?
Yes, I saw it coming because of the director. I feel like he just that's right. It's just twists. So I don't know. I kind of expected that, and I appreciated it. Like I didn't like it.
That's an entirely valid response.
I didn't like it, but I was like, okay, like I'll just go. I'm on board.
Right.
Right.
All right. So part 2 happens, and the interesting thing about part 2 in the beginning is it starts dealing with the history of Hideko as a child.
Stop pausing after you say Asian names.
Because it's just her name. It's just her name because literally, well, first of all, you said stop and look at me every time. I'm literally following instructions. But the second thing is, so she is a little girl. We sort of see her upbringing as to why
you get
she
more
is the way
context
she
of
is.
why she is.
And we deal with her aunt
Mhm.
and her aunt's history and how she was sort of in a very bad place.
She was in prison too.
Yeah,
like,
and then
basically.
she eventually decides to kill herself.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Leaving the little girl. But, okay.
yeah, I mean, that's a selfish
Yeah.
act. And the interesting thing is sort of in the beginning in part 1, you see Suki going through a lot of her boxes and things, like looking at Hideko's stuff, and it, like, one of them is just a box with a rope in it, and you're like, oh, that's weird, and it turns out it's the rope that her mother hung herself with,
Yeah.
and like there's a couple,
Her aunt.
there's a lot, it's her aunt, or it's
Yes.
like there's a lot of those little small things mixed in, which I really enjoy, and then so we start seeing the genesis of what her uncle has done to her and basically turned her into, for lack of a better term, a sex audiobook robot.
Six audiobook robot.
Yes, I love that. Good job, you.
She sits in front of a room of men and has to read basically verbal pornography with a certain diction and not act out, but like literally speak these
She
things.
has to act out a scene.
Well, then there's a scene with a mannequin, and she's like suspended from like a
Yep.
mannequin.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was okay.
I loved that scene. I thought that was really
Me
cool.
too.
Yeah, that was really interesting.
It made me feel uncomfortable, and then that's what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
I think that
Oh
mannequin.
shit! Am I the repressed one here? Did that not make you guys uncomfortable?
No, I think the mannequin was good. The mannequin scene was great because it portrays what the men there are doing, which is inserting themselves into a scene with her.
Hey, someone describe the mannequin scene.
so what happens is, Esther, do you want to describe it or?
Sure, she basically fulfills every man's fantasy in the room after the reading is over.
Yeah, I was gonna say not every man's fantasy, but
Well, in the room,
In the room.
in that room,
in the
right?
room.
A mannequin is lowered.
Mannequin is lowered. It's a wood mannequin, and she basically gets on top of it, straddles it, and then it starts lifting. It starts like
well, hang on. What is the fantasy?
I mean, having her, I think, is the
No, that's not the fantasy at all. The fantasy is very specific. And again, this is why I think this is a film that's really good for film students. Is that it's the fantasy is about being asphyxiated during sex, asphyxiated to the
Oh
point
no,
of
she
death.
she
that
choked
was-
herself at a different point.
Yeah, that
This
was
is
later.
different.
No, but so what happened is that the Uncle Kazuki says that the illustrate, because he's trying to sell the books as well. He's selling these rare books, and he says that the page is being torn from this book that illustrates how this sex scene worked. So and they were like, what? And one of the people in the room says, you could have fetched a fair price for that book if that illustration was still in the book. And he goes, well, in order to provide, to hopefully up his sale, here is a demonstration of how it worked. And so that's why the
But
mannequin
that wasn't the
Okay.
choking. The
That-
choking,
no,
the choking was a different scene.
but he choked the mannequin. The whole point was that he had a rope and he had the rope around the neck and he was choking the mannequin.
I thought you meant
So-
when she choked herself.
No, so everyone in the room was seeing a visualization
Got it.
of the scene that she had just described.
yeah.
Okay.
Which is why, and again, what I liked about that is that it's to the point. It's the thing that Chan-wook Park does that is, like the octopus scene in Old Boy, like eating the octopus. It's to the point of like showing the extent at which the uncle has created this world for his clients. But also, this is what he's, what his world
That's
is.
his reality.
He's kind of created this entire reality.
world.
You're ruining Disney
I
movies
know,
for
isn't
everyone
it great?
everywhere.
I literally had written in my notes, WTF was with the mannequin. So I'm glad you explained that for me.
Yeah,
because,
thank you. That shed a lot of light on that.
Yeah. So the Count tries to make a deal with, actually, this is where the true backstory hits. The deal was actually to screw over Suki all along.
Yeah. So we see the backstory of. So at the beginning of the film, we saw he's not a count. He's just a person in prison.
He's a guy playing a count.
Yeah, he's a counterfeiter himself.
A counterfeit count. The count of counterfeiting.
And at the beginning of the film, he is basically sold
No, I just had, no.
He's sold the
We
idea.
take this film too seriously, Matt. You can't do it. No, I'm just kidding.
He sold the idea of like defrauding this woman to the head matron of this house. But in fact, he's made another deal with Lady Hideko herself in order to
After seeing one of her audiobook sex readings.
In terms of like, in a way to emancipate her. So he's got a double.
He's going to free her, but take half her money.
Yeah, and so he's playing like kind of.
He's playing both of them.
Well, he's kind of playing again. There's this idea of triplet. The story is broken up into 3 parts.
Right.
Each character has 3 names, and there's 3 roles that he's playing as well. One is the role that he is acting to, who Suki is. Then he's acting. You
said it wrong. It's Suge.
Then he's playing the role. I'm just going to ignore you. He's playing the role to Hideko as well, and then he's also telling a story to both of them. And I, again, I just think that's a beautiful execution of theme through storytelling.
Yeah,
it's just
no, 100%. So then we start witnessing all of the same scenes from before, but just slightly elongated version, except for the sex scene, which is
color.
And you figure out like the before and after of scenes we've seen before, but from outside of Suki's perspective.
So, for example, the scene where the count comes on to
Hideko.
Hideko.
Yeah.
In part 1, you see why that he wasn't actually. It was just a ploy for Suki.
And in fact, the thing that we've kind of assumed. Well, he's playing the role of the lustful suitor,
coming on too strong.
Coming on too strong. But then, in fact, he's uninterested in sex with her entirely, which I thought was that's an interesting play on that.
Yeah.
And then he's like, but
only. Yeah, but a little towards the end.
But then he's playing it to Suki as well.
Yeah,
because there's a scene where he says, "I can't keep this up for much longer," and he makes her grab his penis, and then we realize like later on that Hideko is in the bushes watching this whole scene. So it's like you get this sort of triple view of the same scene from 3 ways, which I again. Masterfully executed.
Yes.
So then there's the elongated sex scene, which we can talk about more if we want to, and sort of why it worked or didn't work for us. The one thing that I did notice, and when I realized it was going on too long, was when they switch into this sort of scissory position. There was a moment where they both, and I wrote this down like this. It's so fucking weird. They do what I would consider the bro clasp, like a la Predator. Like, in Predator, when Arnold and they fucking hit the arms and like the biceps hit. So they both do that and they're like holding it. And that's the moment when I realized this is going on too long. Like, it was sexy as fuck. There's no question. But when I love how you thought you made a face with that. When they did that, I was like, this has been, look at my wrist. Like,
you know what I love? That's the moment that I thought this was great. I really loved that they actually held hands to that, and they were like,
they weren't holding hands, they were clasping.
Yeah, but
that was like fucking utilitarian.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a side of it which I hadn't seen before, and I thought was really interesting.
Okay.
And I thought it solidified to me that they were in a partnership together.
Hello, only woman in the room.
But the partnership is a difference. So the problem that I had with the elongated sex scene is like not that it was super long, but if you're gonna do it, just do it in a way where you're portraying that there's actually love between them. For me, it felt pornographic because yes, there's lust when you're making love with someone, but that's not the core of, you know what I mean? And it's like, that's why for me it was an issue, because very much like all the ways it was shot, it was just seems like such a lustful way to portray two people that are in love. You know what I mean?
But it's also the thing that I kind of appreciated about it is that I kind of disagree with the sex and love kind of distinction. Like that love can't be passionate, intimate, and ferocious.
No, not
you know
that
what I mean?
It can't be. I just.
And this is the first time. There
was no part of their long sex scene to me that felt like it was love. The whole thing felt like lust to me.
There's a little bit of a paint by number situation.
Well, see, them holding
and
hands.
that's what I mean. Is like when you
they're
have
not holding hands.
When you
they
have
are actually holding hands.
Well, they yes, physically, but also Arnold and fucking.
So that's the definition of holding hands is Arnold. And
no, I'm saying
Carl
that's not.
Weathers
It's literally
Predator.
Arnold and Carl Weathers like and like hold like holding hands is something that like you do when you want to sort of be emotionally involved. They were literally doing it for leverage.
So okay, let's get into some personal talk here. Have you ever like held hands when you're having sex?
Yes.
And can it
that
be
happens?
And but is it always?
But it
just
doesn't go like this. Like it never happens like that. It's
You've never done if you have more power to you.
That's to me that's the equivalent of being like, hey, I just came, high five.
Yeah.
Like that's
okay. I read it an entirely different way to
Really?
you guys. Yeah.
Okay.
But that's cool.
But anyway, that's my issue with the long sex scene. Not that it's like long, but the whole scene just felt very lustful.
Yeah.
And that was it. Like
I think to me the point of contention that I had with the sex scene was that these were two. I don't know how to do this without like getting into issues of body, but these were two women that were fairly flawless on screen.
Yeah.
And like one thing I liked about, for example, Blue is the Warmest Color is that it was about the kind of messiness and you know, like we saw bodies that weren't in perfect positions and you know, it felt very sort of we were seeing something that we wouldn't see on screen, whereas the scene that we were seeing in The Handmaiden felt very it felt like two dancers.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So
like choreographed.
Yeah, it was very choreographed.
I think that's part of it too, because so as a woman, and also as a Korean woman, like I touched on this earlier, but like there is a pendulum swing that happened in not with people, but like in cinema, where it went from everyone being repressed sexually, not showing anything, like you know what I mean, like just being very gingerly handling those things.
It was like redheaded.
Yeah, and then it just sort of swung recently. I think it like where it's become a little bit more mainstream to show those things, and that's totally fine because I think it's like it shows respect. You know, it's like
there should be a balance where we're seeing bodies of people that
are normal,
yeah,
not like made for film, because people don't look like that.
Right. I do agree with you.
Like
on
you
that,
walk into, and this is funny, you walk into like King Sauna, which is, you know, like those Turkish baths, basically it's like a Korean, everyone's just naked.
Right.
There is not a single woman I've seen in there.
Yeah.
And they range from completely like pre-puberty to like old grandmothers. They don't look like that.
Right.
That's just like made for film. So
yeah, it does feel a little bit constructed in that way. I do agree with you on that. And that is the point of where I think it's something that Chan-wook Park, his films are hyper real. They're not they're constructed realities.
That's kind of what I was going to get into, was all of his stuff is like that, and like
graphic.
Yeah, but the constructed realities in the sense of like
they're
look, if I'm gonna
but
watch
I do
a
agree
film,
with you. I do 100% agree with you.
Yeah, like I'd never argue I could see that totally not working because of those reasons.
Right.
I think the reason, I mean, there's look.
Well,
there's,
like the shot of two of them on like against the window in the back, like that's a picture perfect scene. And I was like, well,
sure,
clearly you're, you know,
and obviously, I mean, look, these are it's hyper realistic, sort of beyond realism, because they are so basically flawless that it sort of works twofold. One, all of his films are like that, and with either violence or even cinematography or anything he does sort of feels that way. And then two, there's no question, and I will unabashedly say this, that it is meant for a gaze of someone who would find that arousing.
Yeah.
Like there's no question.
But I don't think it's specific. It's necessarily only arousing to men.
No, I said whoever finds it arousing.
Right.
What I'm saying is it's meant to arouse. It is. There's a point where it only becomes about arousal as opposed to moving story forward. And look, no matter what you're doing, why you're going to see this or why you're continuing to enjoy it, It's funny because I feel like I'm, out of everyone here, one of the only people that enjoyed this thing entirely
Like 150%,
through.
yeah.
And then those scenes, to me, honestly, weirdly enough, for my, heterosexual male whatever, they were just like icing. And while I did feel like the second one went on too long, just from because the bro fist totally, like, any arousal I had ended there. Like, it was fucking
Like, you're
weird.
getting too excited.
And I'm like,
Clap.
Predator? Oh my God.
I don't think that's necessarily the only frame of reference you should use for.
That is the only one I'm gonna.
Handmaiden.
That's the only one I'm gonna. Predator
Okay.
and Handmaiden. You heard it here first. So like, but they were just icing. Even the
Yeah.
end scene of the film was icing to me. And I know there are reasons for it.
I applauded during the end scene. I thought that was brilliant. I loved the end scene.
I mean, I don't think it was brilliant. I think it was hot.
Really?
Like, brilliant?
Yeah.
They just fuck with the balls that they were talking about on the thing. We'll get there. We'll get
And
there.
they were fucking specifically with the balls that had been used to abuse one of them.
Yes.
And they were now making music with them.
So interestingly enough, I loved that scene.
Yeah, I applaud that. I thought that's like,
well, let's
to the point is,
we'll get to it.
When I got to that scene, I thought, this is going on too long. But the resolve of that scene, where you hear the balls actually like
Clinging and jingling,
together,
yeah.
I was like,
That was super
brilliant.
clever. That was super
Right, okay.
clever.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I will say, let's because that's one of the more interesting parts. Let's just sort of get through and we'll get to
part
that.
three.
Yeah.
So, part 3. Oh, sorry. Hideko has second thoughts about if she's actually, this is still in part 2, gonna betray Suki. The Count sort of convinces her, but then they develop sort of a third and final plan in part 3 to actually betray the Count because they realize they were betraying each other. Oh, Hideko tries to hang herself and Suki saves her.
I loved the humor in that scene.
Yeah, because
Because she forgets.
She forgets she's there.
Like, oh God, I'm so sorry.
there's no dignified way to save someone in that scenario.
Yeah.
I know it's just it's.
I know.
And the fact that she forget about the person that she says she loves,
Yeah.
and then to cry and comfort herself.
I just love like it's a slapstick humor kind of thing. It's just something he's so good at.
So then Hideko takes Suki to show her the basement, which we eventually see, and then they destroy
destroy all the books.
destroy the library. They cut the head off the
Well,
snake.
they don't.
The snake
Suki does.
Yeah, the snake
Oh,
that guards
I
the.
love-
Me too.
I love that Suki destroyed it,
Yeah.
and what you had was Hideko watching her,
Yeah.
and she was like suddenly realizing how much
fucked up this
Yeah.
is.
No, how much Suki loved her.
Yeah.
She
Yeah,
was like,
yeah.
She was because Suki was so angry. at everything that had been done to her. She was just like, and it was like her.
That's where
she was gonna
that's where I
destroy.
believed honestly that they were in love.
Well, I think me too, and I think that's where their turning point. It's just setting you up for part 3 because what I was going to say leading into part 3 was that part 3 was the only part of the movie where their love was believable to me,
Right.
and I think that's why I appreciated the last scene.
So part 3, there's a fire in the asylum that Suki is in, but she has a lockpick with her. She gets out.
She has a lockpick because she's written a letter to the matron of the baby farm.
Yes,
which is the lockpicks we see at the beginning.
At the beginning of the film, it all ties in very nicely. It's all those small details that really work. Meanwhile, Hideko.
Just before we do that, I love that they had these like fire retardant suits.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then they throw up.
Oh, because side note, this is a period piece.
Yeah. And then they
This
run
is the 30s, correct?
Yeah.
Because like the fact that
19th,
they had an English side wing of the house and a Japanese wing of the house,
Yeah.
and the fact that it had electricity was like a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
there were
but
brownouts.
That the way the electricity was used, where there was a power outage, and they use it, and then he uses it as a transition later on in the film.
Yeah.
It's just
There's a lot of good use of clouds in this movie too, and sunlight being clouded.
It's so good. It's like again in Stoker, there is one of the best transitions I've ever seen in cinema, and it's basically
Bram Stoker.
we see some hair that turns into a landscape, and it's like one of the most. He's just so good at constructing a fully fledged narrative through imagery.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
So just kind of plowing through because we do have to wrap up. Hideko is with the Count, the fake Count, and then she tries to poison him with some stuff that they had from before. It turns out she has to actually literally spit it in his mouth from wine, and then they have to. He eventually passes out, sort of mid, almost involuntary.
About to insert.
Yeah.
So
It was about to rape her.
yeah. But she gets away. She takes the money. They reunite. The Count awakens. I love this part with his pants down and gets, quote, arrested. I thought he was arrested. It was not. It keeps cutting back and forth. It's actually the uncle who goes and gets him because I think that they told basically what he did. The uncle then, I mean, this goes full the director's forte of just sort of torture. He starts cutting off fingers. He starts doing this stuff.
That's what I was like, this is his film. Like, this is.
Yeah. And then the basement is full of like private parts and jars and a legitimate octopus in a tank.
But that wasn't his, was it? I thought it was a gift that Suki or Hideko had left.
No, that was
just
I took that as because there was the illustration of the woman being basically raped by an octopus. That he actually made her do that.
Yeah, remember he said to her like, remember
you can always go back to the basement.
You can always go to the basement.
Like that. So like he actually, I think, made her do that, and God, thank fucking Christ they had the restraint to not like. It's more terrifying.
But the thing is what was interesting about it is you connected those dots yourself.
And you know what? That's the one thing I will say. I wrote this down in my notes that I was not shocked about. I'm like, oh, there's a fucking octopus in that basement.
I actually, funny enough, I was always kind of like, what's in the basement?
I knew the second they mentioned the basement and we had already seen the picture. I was like, fucking octopus in the basement. That fucked up. Fuck.
That's so funny. I was like.
That was the one non-surprise. Fuck.
I did not know that there was an octopus in there, and I was like, "Oh, that's what it is."
So the uncle wants to hear about the sex that he had with Hideko, but they faked their wedding night.
They turn on?
And then he kisses him.
The uncle.
Then he has a bunch of mercury cigarettes for some fucking reason, so he kills both of them with like mercury inhalation.
That was his go-to backup plan the whole time.
Yeah.
Like he was like, "Can I have a cigarette?" And you saw that in his cigarette case, there were like two
blue and white.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then there's one last sex scene for the road, which I do agree with what you said. I do think that there's meaning behind it, and the chimes that were used to torture them before. Now they're making music and and I think that's I
remember he literally put it in her mouth and beat her with it.
And then they sail off on a ship and they hit an iceberg. They don't hit an iceberg, but it felt very Titanic.
Yeah,
at the end.
it did. Actually,
I think the compositing towards the end was a little.
No, keep talking.
Yeah. I'm just gonna wait for you to finish.
No, that was that's what I said.
I'm just gonna wait for you to finish. Are you done yet? Are you done? All right, and now it's my turn. No,
the old lady threw the thing in the water.
So there's a couple of other interesting things. I liked seeing the uncle's basement housing.
Of course you did. You sick fuck.
There's an
that's why these films are so curious.
Also
good.
true.
Yeah. There's an interesting. There's this 7-part documentary I've seen called Pornography.
Jesus.
And it talks.
I think that's actually just pornography.
Yeah, I watched pornography for 7 hours straight.
Like
7 different videos.
Well, I mean, there's always Gangbangers 9 or whatever the fuck. Like that's your 7-part documentary.
No, not quite. I can't remember who made it. I found it. In a Barnes and Noble many years ago.
No, you didn't.
You're just trying to make sure that this sounds credible.
All right. Well,
I found it in a Barnes and Noble.
I found it in a Barnes and Noble.
Okay.
A legitimate book organization.
Yeah. But the interesting thing about it was this idea that pornography didn't exist pre the Victorian era. So that that in the Roman period, for example, depictions of sex and sexuality were par for the course, and in fact, they were part of political discourse. Was depictions of your opponents in sexual positions, for example, and it was not uncommon to go into a household and see graphic depictions of sex on the walls, and it was considered to be a sign of enlightenment to have. And then after the fall of Pompeii and the discovery of these artifacts, the Victorians decided that these were objects that were going to inflame the mass populace because they were so chaste and so into this idea of religion that they created this entire wall. And that's kind of the definition of pornography comes out of that era where the Victorians took these artifacts and said, the general public cannot see these. They are only for private collections and people
behind the bedroom door.
No, not even behind the bedroom door. People who knew and
is it like a class issue?
Yeah, it was very much a class issue.
Interesting.
So it was very much an issue of
only rich
so
people
it wasn't even about
have
public or privacy.
It was
about class.
100%. The historical roots of pornography have to do with class more than anything. And what you saw in this basement, because this is a very wealthy man who's clearly a collector of these artifacts,
right,
and keeps them for himself and for a very private audience that are very of a very
Wealthy,
elevated class.
yeah.
And again, this is a topic that I'm interested in because I've written a film about this period as well, is that on the other side of that, you have babies that are born out of wedlock that are abandoned because of our understanding of religion and the way we see the world. And then on the other side, you've got people exploring sex and sexuality, but in an entirely private realm. And so I think the reason, when we were in this basement and we started to see all these artifacts, I got a sense of who this person was. And then, he's clearly inflamed by the arousal of the objects that he collects as well, but they are not for the, he is an abuser of a child. He is a person that is, likely to torture and kill someone. So I think and that mixed in with this idea of Japanese occupation in Korea at that point, this kind of obliteration of culture, I think is very paralleled with what we saw in the Victorian era. And it's something that I think is, it demonstrates to me, again, how well researched this film is and how well thought out this film is.
Yeah. And to that end, I actually just jotted down before. I was like, I wish that the amount of care he put into the storytelling and the research, like everything else he did except for that sex scene. Like, you know what I mean? So I just wish he had put more care into that.
Do you think, I mean, this is a straight up man to sort of woman question. Do you think that there is like a male director on the planet that could do that as well as justice as say a female director could have done that?
I would like to see. I prefer
scene?
to see a female director.
Yeah.
But like, is that what's holding him back?
So like, I would be curious to find out if he had even tried to not even talk, but like have a woman consult him on how to shoot these scenes. You know what I mean? Because this is clearly not his forte. His forte is like violence and like, you know what I mean? And so like for him to decide to devote this film and like
he called Arnold and Carl Weathers and he said, how would you do this?
Have you guys seen Nymphomania?
No,
not
the Lars
yet.
von Trier film?
The Shia.
Yeah, Shia LaBeouf's in as well.
I was like, I'm like iffy on that. I don't know. If
Again, like I think there is.
Is it good?
It's interesting. Lars von Trier is a very interesting filmmaker. He's very a formalistic filmmaker, like Chan-wook Park, but also is more interested in reality than I think Chan-wook Park is. And so, yeah, I think like a filmmaker like Claire Denis, a French filmmaker who made a film years ago, Beau Travail, she would be a great person to do. But I don't think that it necessarily like. Because you are a female filmmaker, you will be better at this.
And I cut off. And I'm sorry, I cut off Esther with my stupid joke when she was.
No, I don't. I agree with that. I don't think it means that you're better at it. I just think that if you're a male and this is clearly like new territory, like you should put just as much care into making sure you're doing it right.
Yeah.
Because clearly he did his research and the story. It's like he cared about everything else so much, and then I felt like he just did haphazardly because I was like, this is so important in Korean culture as it is.
Yeah.
Exposing sexuality in this graphic form.
Yeah.
And it's okay to be graphic and spend as much time you want on it, but do it with like a little bit less of a male skewing. Yeah, that's what I mean. It felt pornographic and it felt very lustful. And I was like, you have to find like a.
I think I do agree with you on that. My only defense of that is that I think he is, like he treated the sex scenes like he treated a fight scene in one of his films, which is that.
And I think the argument, I agree with that. I think the argument is, I don't know if you can equate. Like, and now while time and sort of exposure should be the same, I don't think that necessarily treating the sex scene like a fight scene in that regard does it justice.
Yeah, because I think that he probably didn't feel like he was responsible. To treat it delicately. Whereas like a woman, it's like, I mean, if you're going to do it, just do it. Like, you know what I mean? Like he felt no responsibility
to treat it. Yeah.
Gingerly. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So. And I agree with that. The only thing, and again, like the only defense I have on that is I think his films, I feel like this is something we talk about on the podcast a lot. Filmmakers I really respond to are films that are like entirely hermetically sealed, like they in their own universe. And he is a filmmaker that creates a film this is his universe.
Yeah, and I respect that. And that's why I would recommend this film. You know what I mean? I just don't, for me personally, I was like, I don't really like it that much.
Right.
Let's get into final thoughts. I'll just do mine first. I thought the acting in this film was top notch. I actually didn't have an issue. I know I didn't have an issue with the romance. I know some people might, but I thought the acting overall from everyone was wonderful. I thought the cinematography obviously was gorgeous. The pacing felt off on occasion, especially when they were like, it did feel like they were trying to rush through certain things to get you to another thing, and that's fine when everything else is so wonderful sort of around it. One thing we didn't talk about, we talked about sort of like the very small things like the hairpin and like other things that they always sort of came back to, but there were so many great callbacks of lines throughout the timeline and perceptions, like the, unless you desire to make love to a corpse, or pulling one's hand from a flame, like all these things, these phrases that meant different things based on the situations and the things that happened before they were and after they were said. Script wise was fucking brilliant. And I will say there was a lot of small endings at the end, but that didn't get away from the cleverness from it for me. And I would say 100%. I mean, you can get this movie right now. You can rent it. You can do whatever on all the different streaming sources. And you should.
It's a shame not many people saw it in the theater.
I know. You should totally see this movie. And
do you know if it did better internationally?
It did amazing in Korea.
Right.
It did,
well, I mean, obviously, but
as in, like the other thing with Korean films is like this film cost $8.5 million to make. It made $32 million in Korea. So it's like it's an incredibly successful film. So just not in the United States.
I just think it's something that is definitely worth your time and you should check out. Shahir?
I reiterate everything you said. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful piece of construction. I think emotionally I wasn't quite with the film. And to a point is like with a lot of Chan-wook Park films as well, as I think structurally I wasn't quite there either, but I think it was beautifully constructed. It is the kind of film I would recommend anyone who is interested in the art of filmmaking watch 3 times. Like watch it and try and discern, like the assignment we always set was like, watch it first time, get your impulse, watch it the second time, see if you can find something that is being constructed in it, and watch it third time to defend that construction.
And not just the sexy bits.
Not just the sexy bits. So it's the perfect candidate for that kind of film. Beautifully told. Yes, one without a doubt, rent this film immediately. If you are in any way interested in cinema, in filmmaking, in Korean history, in sex on screen, in storytelling, in any of those things. In other words, if you're an audience of our podcast, you are doing yourself a disservice by not watching this film immediately.
Esther, take us home.
Okay. I went into it wanting to love it. And I just keep getting hung up on that. But other than that, I mean, I agree with you. It is a great film. I would recommend it to everyone who wants to learn about like the craft. You know what I mean? But for me, I just felt like he did a disservice in terms of to women. You know? Yeah.
No, I know. I understand. Yeah, that.
But I really do respect him as a director, and it makes me want to watch more of his films because it's clear like he's just so good at it, especially in this one. Because there's so much subtlety that comes full circle in all of his films. So like, I really appreciate that. I mean, I would recommend it. I just personally.
You guys should both watch Stoker. And I think we should talk about Stoker at some point if possible. Stoker is amazing.
Well, this has been the only podcast about the film The Handmaiden. Now, Esther, when we're not talking about octopuses doing awful things to human beings, where can folks find you?
Like, not on the street or anything. Like, where can they find you virtually?
Like on the internet.
I was like, you didn't set that up for me.
Where, like, what's your Twitter handle? What's your Instagram?
Oh,
unless you don't want people finding out about you.
Sure. You guys can find me on Instagram, Esther B Park. Twitter, I don't use it because it's for old people.
Oh wow, is that the case? Twitter's for old people?
Oh man, what's for young people?
Instagram.
Really? I thought
Instagram and Snapchat.
Snapchat, I'd say is young people.
Yeah,
I would say Instagram.
I'm not going to ask you guys how old you are.
You don't want to know.
I'm 34. I don't give a shit.
I'm 30 fucking 4.
Yeah.
37. I'm going to stay silent about
Hey, you didn't. You just said it.
I
Shahir,
know.
what about you? When you're not admitting your age.
I'm not admitting my age. I'm saying my age. Oh, God, I'm so old. You can find me at shahirdaud.com. That's SHAHIRDAUD.com. There's links to all my Twitter and Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff in there.
And you can find me at MatthewKroll.com. That's MatthewKroll.com. You can find me on Instagram at Skeletor, the number 4 PREC, or on Twitter at EmperorMSK. And also, we got another live show that we're going to be pimping out. We're going to be at PAX East doing our Getting Good at Video Game Movies panel. A lot of new stuff to talk about. It's going to be at 10 p.m. Nope. It's going to be at noon on the 10th. There we go. March 10th in the Dragonfly Theater. Come check us out if you're down there. Me, Shahir, James Portnow, Red. We're doing it
Special
big.
guests.
The same guests we did in PAX West and at MagFest.
Brad Pitt's going to be there. Tom Cruise is coming through.
If you're on the Esther, you want to come?
Sure.
Let's fucking do this.
Vin Diesel.
If you can come, Vin Diesel will be there. It'll
Pierce
be great.
Brosnan.
Pierce Brosnan also on
Ewan
effect.
McGregor.
Yeah, all of these people will
Daniel
actually.
Craig.
Yeah,
Okay.
a ton of people will be there, and they're going to tell you why video game movies suck and how we can fix them.
You'd be surprised how much Denzel Washington plays StarCraft.
Anyway, you can also find us at onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com. Please write us in. Tell us if you liked The Handmaiden. Tell us if you had the same problems or praises as any of us. Also, you can see us at our website, onlymoviepodcast.com, where we have all of our stuff. We have a back fucking catalog.
I found an interesting statistic the other day, which is that one of our listeners has listened to more stuff in our catalog than the length of the catalog itself. So they had listened to episodes multiple times.
Mystery listener.
Many times. in
Esther,
fact.
don't make that face. What is that shit? You're a guest.
I'm not surprised.
Wow. But yeah, so and please, iTunes reviews, they really help us out. And actually, if you have friends that you feel like either A, love movies, or B, you kind of want to love movies, I think we might be able to help out with that. So just pass us along, because that's how this thing's going to grow.
Just throw us along in the street.
No. But seriously, the more you guys, the listeners, talk about this thing, the more we can actually do this. And we love doing it. We do it as much as we can. We give you at least once a week. But eventually, we're going to start building this a little bit bigger. And there's been some talks about how we're going to do that.
Conversations have been had.
Yeah, so
we've been holding hands, bro style, during these conversations.
And it's been a lot
Mental image
Take us home.
unnecessary, guys.
What's the matter? CIA got you pushing too many pencils? So guys, so seriously, thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much for your continued support. It really means a lot. Esther, thank you yet again
Thank
for
you,
coming
guys.
and lending your wonderful expertise to our show. I really appreciate it.
Thanks.
See you next week.
See you next week for something a little more lighthearted. Bye.